Hello and welcome to Healthy Living with Paola Royal. And once again, I got Werner Haywood with me today. We thought we're going to continue our lovely conversation we had last week. So I told you before, I support you to increase your quality of life through understanding the way you eat, think, and live so that you are able to live the life you want to live.
Exactly.
And I got with me, like I said, Werner Haywood. Maybe you would like to introduce yourself, Werner?
Hi, everyone. And thank you, Paola, for having me on your program with you. It's always a pleasure being with you. I like the fun, I like the laughter, and I like that we can bring that joy to your people. Basically, I am Verna Haywood, and I am the founder of Levy Spa. I am also an ambassador for the Global Wellness Institute. I have a degree in international spa management. I am a qualified therapist. I am a member of the UK Spa Association, and I'm also a member of the Federation of Holistic Therapists. So, what I do, I ease your aches, pains, and tension, and I also help to mentor other therapists as well who are looking to maybe get into business, very entrepreneurial, and want to look at what life has in store for them. So that's me, just wanting to have a bit more fun and to bring some goodness to you on what's on your plates, basically. Do you know what's on your plate and what is going to do for your health and well being? Here we are, Paola.
There we are, and that's what we're going to talk about today, we decided. So we thought we're going to start off because there is so much information out there, and to clarify some of this information. And I think the most important thing is that we know as well all the food which ends up on your plate is going to go inside of you. So that means everything what goes in our animals, every chemicals, every anything what is in your food is going to end up in your system. And your digestive system, your liver, your kidneys, your lymphatic system has to deal with that. And it's either beneficial and supporting your innate ability of self-healing, or it's contradictive and can lead to inflammation, and inflammation leads to any kind of disease. So what we want to talk about first, Berna, any ideas what you want?
No, I think we just let it flow, really, because I think the important thing is what people should know is that you have to know not just what's on your plate, but you have to know where it's coming from as well, isn't it? Because if the food is not sourced properly and it's not grown properly, this is where you get all your pesticides and everything, which then have an effect, as you said, on our organs, and which causes different problems. So nature has everything. And if you look at every farmer don't grow the same food on their soil all the time. We give it a break. So a farmer might be doing maybe two or different type of produce, but they will have the different areas where they planted because the soil need to recuperate for the next season. And get ready for that. So it's just important to know where it's coming from, how it's getting on your plate, what you're going to be doing. Is it healthy? Is it not? So let's just let it flow as it will, really.
Yes, yes. So I can just tell a story about myself. So in the beginning, I just thought I start with going gluten-free. So, it's not that you have to go gluten-free at all. Some people, they're just a little bit intolerant with flour. And it's actually possible that it's not even the gluten which is responsible for that, but the way the bread is produced in your supermarkets.
Yeah.
So it's possible when you go to a private bakery that or you got a better idea where the flour or where the production is coming from, because they're using better flour generally, and they also leave the bread to rise for longer. So when you, for example, buy sourdough in the supermarket, they don't give it the normal time. It needs up to 24 hours or even longer to produce a proper sourdough bread, and they often don't give it the chance, and that's the reason you're reacting with fluctuation or with bloating. So it's not even always the gluten which is responsible for that. Then plus in, like Werner just said as well, there is often a lot of pesticides and in the flour, because they need to turn around the fields so often, or they turn it around constantly, so they never rest the fields, you know. So there are a lot of pests creating, so they need to spray. I mean, we know grain and sweet corn and oats, which is as well a grain, is actually sprayed highly because they're the most pests in it. So it's really an idea to look out for that, and maybe go for grains and stuff, to buy that organic, to and from a local bakery. And anything else to that subject?
As you're saying that, it just brought me. I always have to use my story, because I think, like you did, when we use ourselves, when we use our story, it becomes so much more authentic. And I remember as a young girl growing up with my grandmother was so much wisdom, is that we used to grow corn. So we used to have a field of corn, and we grew our corn, and we had to take it home when it's dry. So we dried the corn as well. So some corn you pick on the tree, and it's the corn tree, and it's already into drying stage. So you just dry it further and make it come really dry. And what you call polenta is what we will call cornmeal. So we will take the corn back home and put it in the grinder, and we will grind it. And that's where we get our corn flour. So, you know, that's your real organic flour. There is nothing mixed in there. Basically, it's just grown naturally. And also, my dad used to work in the cane factory. So they used to make the sugar cane and the flour and everything else. So getting that 100% natural ingredient, I've never thought about it except now. Now
Okay.
that I'm talking about it, there's just so much that escape you when you grow up. And all those things made an impact in your life and in your health and your well-being. So it's really important to find out where your food is coming from. I know we import foods from all over the world, but sometimes when we import them, they pick them beforehand. So they never get the chance to get full on the tree, or to get really ripe on the tree before they pick them. Even if they pick them at a full stage, not have to wax them so much and then send them over, then that will be great. But, you know, they have to do all these things to make the food be able to take the journey. So it's important for you to know what's going on. And I'm really, really blessed to have had that opportunity to see how everything was grown and how we made it. So yeah, I can't attest to more having more natural things, more organic.
Yesterday we went for a bike ride, and we went past a cornfield. And I just said to Ellen, because I grew up, you know, where we were when I grew up, there were loads of cornfields, and we used to play as children in the cornfields, and we did puppets, used the corns out, you know, as puppets with the hair and stuff. I don't know if you ever did that. And I said to Ellen yesterday, oh, let's just pick 2 of them, you know, we can have them for dinner. So I picked some corn, and I went home, and it was actually the skin, the outside skin was much harder, and also the corn was really light. And so I said, no, that's animal feed, you know, that's used for animal feed. It's like a different variety of corn. And I looked it actually up, and it's actually 98% of this corn is for animal feed, produced for animal feed. And what is different to the normal corn is that the skin is thicker and that it grows higher. So 98% of the corn which gets planted out there, what you see on the field, is actually used for animal feed. And
Wow.
yeah, that's quite a lot. And it's a
Yeah.
completely different kind, well, not completely, but it's the same kind of family, but it is different to the normal corn. And
And
because they're turning it around so quickly, they have to spray, of course, so much more.
mm,
So
so obviously the animal is taking in all that pesticide as well, which is
exactly.
having an effect on their bloodstream, on their in their skin and everything else. So it's so, it's really, it makes you think about what you should be eating and what you should be consuming in your system, because it's
Exactly.
like you said, our liver has so much work to do when we to process it, we just overload it, isn't it?
Oh, yes. So what happens if you want, for example, if you want to lose weight, but you eat a lot of food with a lot of chemicals in, then actually your liver is going to hold on to the fat because it needs it, and you
Mhm.
start with that as well, inflammation in your system and also in your gut system, through all the chemicals and stuff, the absorption can't happen, your gut wall thickens up, and so you can't really how do you say, you can't really
Percent.
absorb all the
Yeah,
good nutrients from the food.
yeah.
So it's a round, it's not a good idea. So if you want to lose weight, you really, the first thing you want to do is getting away from the chemicals in your food. And like I started to say, and I didn't even finish my story. So when we went gluten-free, we wanted to go gluten-free. I bought some bread in the supermarket, which was gluten-free. And I was really happy to find some rolls which looked all right. And so I went home and I turned it around and I read all the ingredients in the, on the package of the bread. And it was so full of additives that I decided actually I don't want to eat it, because the only thing what you want to have in bread is flour, water. Maybe it really depends, what you, how you're doing it. You maybe want to have some butter in it, some milk in it. It really depends how you, some seeds in it, but you don't need more than actually water and flour to do your bread, and a little bit of salt and rising agent maybe. But when you read the ingredients, there's so much more in it, so you really don't want to have it.
No, no. It's quite amazing because my mom, and I'm not sure if I told you, my mom had her own business, and it was all about food. So she used to prepare food for the men that work for the water and sewage company, and she was very particular about what she feed them. So on every afternoon, I used to have to prepare kneaded dough, because you remember you said something about making sure the dough don't get time to raise and they don't leave it for sufficient time. And I remember having to mix the dough before I go for lessons. So 4:30, 5 o'clock, I mix that dough, go to lessons, come back from lessons in an hour. The flour would have risen, and then I had to mix it again, knead it down again, then roll it out, put it in the tin, and have to raise again before it went into the oven. And I'm like, oh, it's so much work.
Oh
But
yes,
I
yeah.
mean, it's the best bread you will take because it was so light and fluffy, and it got the time to raise and everything else. So I just imagine, because when you're doing this mass production, nothing gets chance, does it?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So
Yeah,
the other thing is, when we were talking about grains before, and when you think,
yeah.
it's like you said, it's animal food. So not only your dog and your cat gets it, but also, the cows. So like happy cows, they are on the field and they eat a lot of grass and all the clay and everything, in the fields. I used to live in Switzerland. They had loads of herbs in the fields. And so the milk was really good, so the meat was really good. The cheese was really good because it was all fresh. But
Okay.
when they're kept a lot indoors, they get a lot of grain, and the grain they're getting is from this overproduced corns and grains they are producing out there in the fields. So there's lots of pesticides in their food,
Mm.
which is ending up in their meat. Plus, then they get antibiotics and all other injections, medications, because they need that to stay healthy, because they're on really close room together. I know a farm really close by here, which had their pigs outside, and they were really happy pigs, and now you don't see any pigs outside anymore. They're all indoors, never see any daylight, so they probably need a lot of medication and stuff. And when you think that's the meat then which ends up on your plate and you're eating, so it's
Yeah.
not really just the meat, which is then the problem, because it's not a good idea to eat too much meat, because as well, like we know, or you maybe don't know, when you eat too much meat and you eat too much protein, that gets used then as sugars in your system as well, so it raises your insulin levels too much of it. And so it's okay to eat meat, but not too much.
Too much.
You don't need
Mhm.
more than like
Yeah.
twice a week, and you want to have more vegetables on your plate than meat, definitely. But what you want to think of is, where does my
Where
meat
does it
comes
go?
from,
Mhm.
so whatever goes into the animal is going to end up on your plate. And like we said, where does it go from then? It goes into your system, and it leads as well again to inflammation, and like I said, your insulin levels rising when you get too much. And that sounds maybe confusing for you, but that's for maybe another lesson. To just go with that for the
Yeah.
moment.
Mhm.
So yeah, so it's
Yeah.
really to look out for that.
It is. It is. So you just have to make sure what's on your plate is healthy. Because if you don't have the healthy foods on your plate, it affects your organs. It affects every system in your body. You cannot think, if you think about it this way, I like to use the analogy of a car. If you have a car and you normally will put petrol in your car to drive your car, you wouldn't suddenly go and put diesel, because it's not going to work. And you have to think about all the sequence that everything goes through in your car, all the different tubes that everything goes through to make that car run. So if your car have the right fuel in it, it's going to do what it needs to do. If it doesn't have the right fuel, it goes, you have to jump start it.
Oh,
Your
Verna.
body is trying to do, your liver is trying to break everything down and to keep you healthy, but it's having so much trouble to do that. It's overworking itself basically, and it's storing the fat, as Paola said. So you really want to pay attention to getting those healthy foods on your plate, drinking your water, eating your water, getting the right healthy oils, the whole grains, like Paula said. All of that makes a difference, because you have what? Your circulatory system, your nervous system, your lymphatic system. So where we talk about, where does it go? Where does that food go? How is it going to process to get out of your system? Your gut have so much work to do. And if you think about your septic tank, if you know it's overflowing everywhere, then you're going to need to clear this off. Yeah, so it's it's quite amazing, isn't it, Paola?
Yes, I
How
think
things
really
happen.
the key is, when you get all these chemicals in, your liver has to work absolutely overtime, and
Yeah,
it will keep hold of your fat storages, your visceral fat. and it's going to end up in your bloodstream and in and around the liver, and it's going to lead to a fattening liver, and it's start of inflammation, and
Yeah.
inflammation is really what you don't want to have in your system,
Yeah.
because the
Mm.
inflammation then leads to disease. So that's what you want to look out for. So
Mm.
as much and as well, your metabolism slows down, like I said, because you can't get rid of your fat, so your metabolism starts to slow down.
Slow down. Yeah.
Also your gut system, your gut can't digest properly, because the gut wall starts to thicken up. So you can't, the blood can't take up all the nutrients, so it can't bring it to your cells who need these nutrients for energy production. It's impossible.
Yeah.
And so it's a really good idea to eat as clean as possible. So when you have something on your ingredients list, you don't know what it is, just put it back in the shelf and don't even buy it,
Discount it.
and
Yeah. Mm.
think when you go to the butchers, and so ask him, where is that meat from. You can ask them and they can give you the information. And also with your vegetables, so I say, for example, everything what is thin skinned is an idea to really buy organic, because when it gets sprayed and you've got a thicker skin, it won't go into the fruit, into the vegetables. But everything what is thin skin is a really good idea to buy organic.
Yeah.
And it's not much more expensive, honestly not. Because if you have good food, for example, as well, you got good bread, you don't need to eat as much, just with bread. I mean, I could eat a whole loaf of toast bread from the supermarket, no problem. I do a competition with everyone out there, not anymore. but when you have, good bread from a good bakery, you need a slice or two, and that's enough. That's enough.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
satisfied.
Yeah. It's so true. And it's just sometimes the smell of it alone fills you up. And when you take that taste of it, you just want to savor it, isn't it? It's just so lovely to eat something that is made properly, and you know that it's going to do your body well.